Yo, welcome to Muse News Crypto. I am Nate Muse. Going to touch on just a couple of things here regarding Bitcoin, kind of the bullish indicators that I'm seeing with Bitcoin. On top of that, some information regarding CZ and the CFTC. You saw the thumbnail, Gary talking about how he can't charge CZ. He didn't actually say that, but I do want to kind of bring to light some positive information regarding the CFTC, potentially coming down on Binance and what it currently looks like and what the future might hold with that cooperation. So jumping right in though, here is Bitcoin on the 4-hour. We've got a nice trend line that's been kind of forming here. Price target for a lot of people are saying that we're expecting to see maybe right around this 32 range. Could potentially break below the neckline though and put us back at 27 this weekend. We'll see what happens there. On the daily though, I mean, again, we've got a pretty solid trend line forming that's taken us up to that 34 range, possibly beyond. I know there's a lot of predictions out there that come May, we might actually see 45K. So we'll see what happens. But again, if it breaks below this trend line here, like it did the other day during that $4 billion Bitcoin sell-off, not the end of the world. As you can see here, it did so and then corrected back up to the upside up to 28. Sat there at about 28 for about a day and a half, got its way up to 30 again, dropped down, and then now we're sitting at 29 again. So we'll see what continues on with that. But moving on though, I want to point out something that I think is some pretty bullish information and kind of what's been said and maybe what's not being said on top of that. Says here, no immediate path forward. The CFTC is talking to Binance after launching legal action. It says here, we'll play a little video here in just a moment of this gal here, Kristen Johnson, excuse me, the commissioner of the CFTC. She's going to touch a little bit on this in the video, but she's saying how the regulator, the CFTC, hopes to find a path forward in the legal battle with crypto exchange Binance, right? So me personally, I think that CFTC is taking a much better approach to certain actions against different individuals and different corporations, a lot better than what the SEC has done. And I'm sure Gary is probably kicking himself in the you know what right now because he's not the one that's coming down on him, right? So I'm just going to play a quick clip here that was just posted yesterday.
Do you think that going forward there needs to be crypto-specific laws in the US? What does that look like?
Well, I do think that we'll have to be really careful to have dynamic regulation that is not just responsive to the asset classes that we see in the market today, but that gives us the flexibility and capability to respond as entrepreneurs and innovators, coders and developers of software protocols continue to release more and more interesting sort of asset classes and products in financial markets. Under immediately existing laws, there is provision to understand how securities laws would apply to any digital assets that qualify as securities, and those the same in the context of commodities. However, I agree with you. It is imperative that Congress step up and make plain what their preference is in terms of how to deal with the spot market oversight. I think that's the singular space. If we went very narrow, specifically to your uncertainty point, that spot market oversight, that definitional piece is very critical. And I think it's helpful for us if Congress assists us in giving us that guidance.
I think our audience would love to hear a little bit about a particular case the CFTC is involved in involving Binance that was brought very recently. Can you give us any kind of updates on this? Binance has argued for a long while they're not headquartered in the US, they're not subject necessarily to some of those US laws. How does the CFTC plan to pursue this case?
So, Arjun, let me point out really quickly that the fact that a company is not organized in the United States and may not, in fact, intend to trigger regulation in the United States doesn't mean that they are free from regulatory oversight. Our regulations make plain that where you involve U.S. persons, where you involve U.S. customers, where you trigger or potentially cause effects that impact the stability of U.S. financial markets, we have authority. And in fact, going back to the 2010 Dodd-Frank Act, very explicitly, there's a provision there that we're using for the very first time in the Binance litigation. And that provision is an anti-evasion principle. The anti-evasion principle works in a specific way.
And I'll just go ahead and stop it there. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So yes, I do believe that the CFTC is right in the sense that there are certain customers in the US that they, being the CFTC, kind of does have the right to kind of step in and work with certain individuals, certain companies. I don't know if I necessarily believe that that should be the case, but it is kind of what it is, right? That's the law that we kind of live under, right? But with that, though, the CFTC is going about this in a much better, more, I would say, professionally uniform way of approaching this with CZ. And as she mentioned there, if there is cooperation and CZ is continuing to work with certain sectors of the government, then that looks really bullish for Binance as a whole. I think CZ is going to come out on top. He is in a lawsuit with the CFTC, but as he states in a couple of excerpts here, which I'll talk about. So here's another article from New York Times, right? It's talking about the mounting pressure. And I think this is a very bearish article being written by whoever wrote this, but it does say here that the founder of Binance, CZ, hired a bunch of lawyers on a defense team known as Latham and Watkins, right? So I'll talk about that here in just a moment, but they're a very solid firm, and I think they're going to represent CZ really well. Does talk about here as well in this article how FTX, the recent fallout of FTX and SBF, how that could, be very similar if Binance were to crash, but on a much larger scale, right? So Binance, they're several times larger than FTX is, right? As it says here, processing tens of billions of dollars in trades every single day. Hillary Allen, crypto expert of American University, says it's the biggest exchange for crypto, and if it gets clamped down on, that's going to be a big deal. Yes, I do agree, but I think this is a bearish article in the sense that I do not think that's going to actually ensue. CZ called the CFTC lawsuit an unexpected and disappointing lawsuit, as it says here, incomplete recitation of facts, right? And so he is going to continue to be transparent. If anybody knows CZ, that's just who he is, right? Stands very tall, stands very confident on his businesses, and I don't think this is going to be any different, right? So it talks about here as well, over the course of 7 days in late March, following the lawsuit that was announced, more than $2 billion in crypto was withdrawn from the exchange. So far this month, nearly $1 billion has left the platform, right? It's a whoop-de-doo, right? And the reason I say whoop-de-doo is because here is another article on, this one's on CoinDesk, information coming from Glassnode. The tally has increased by more than 50,000 Bitcoin in 4 weeks, reversing the exodus seen late last year, right? So what's that even talking about? Breaks it down a little bit further here on how Glassnode's information is showing that on the balance sheets for what is held on exchange with Binance, more than 52,000 Bitcoin or $1.5 billion or more in the last 4 weeks has made its way onto the exchange, right? So while there is this bearish article talking about all the money being moved out, very bullish on the fact that there's been that much Bitcoin added to Binance's exchange, and it's being held on the exchange, not necessarily that it's all being traded, right? So very bullish for Bitcoin, Binance, crypto as a whole. And then the global tally since then has increased over 27,000 Bitcoin as far as holders go, right? So Binance's wallets have increasingly gone up over the last 4 weeks. So again, very bullish information. The surge of wallet increases have happened right here. As you can see, it's kind of following that trend along with Bitcoin, right? It's kind of going in the same direction. Crazy how that works. Now, back to that legal team, right? So Latham and Watkins, why I'm bullish on CZ's situation, another reason I should say, is because of the team representing him, right? So he chose a very solid team. Here's just a handful of different achievements that they've received, and I could just keep scrolling for quite a while. But yeah, they've definitely came out on top in a bunch of different lawsuits, and I think they're going to represent CZ quite well. But moving away from Bitcoin, moving away from Binance, CZ's whole situation there, some positive information for Ethereum, right? So we know about the Shanghai upgrade. If you've been watching my videos recently, I've talked quite a bit about it, but it does go into great detail here that I'm not going to really break down a whole lot. But one thing I do want to point out is this part right here. Let me zoom in just a tad. It says here that we are seeing more inflows into the beacon chain, essentially what the Capella upgrade was built on, than withdrawals out. More validators are coming, right? So as we continue to see more people get into the pool of Ethereum and all the different projects that are going on with the dApps that are getting built out and everything that's been happening with Ethereum in a positive manner, there's a lot of negative information out there about all the people that have been staking their Ethereum on the network. Once the Capella upgrade came out, it was all going to get sold off, but no, there's things in place that only allow a certain amount to be sold off out of the beacon chain at a certain given time. But even though that's the case, we did see some whales sell off when the Capella upgrade came out, but nothing in comparison to the amount of money that's been flowing in, as it says here, right? So very bullish information for Ethereum. Guys, I appreciate you watching as always. I will keep these updates on a weekly basis. Shorts are on a daily basis if you want to check those out as well. Drop a comment, like, subscribe, you know the drill. And as always, hope you have a great evening, morning, afternoon, no matter where you're at. keep crushing it.